Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And super excited to be able to welcome another amazing guest on our show, Rob Robson. Rob, thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here, Wileen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to share a little bit about Rob, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how we met. Your story is so amazing, and I know that there's going to be somebody that really relates to it and can get inspired and live in their power because of what you're going to share. So here we go. Rob Robson's success story has been featured in publications such as the #1 best-selling book, The Miracle Morning for Network Marketers, as well as MLM.com. And I asked Rob a little bit about that book because I've been in anthologies before where people have invited me to share a chapter, and you put a whole bunch of really successful people together into a book and it makes a bestseller. But this book was a little bit different. They took $10 million earners. Tell me a little bit about that. I know they interviewed you and put you in this book. I
I,
mean, tell me a
and
little
I
bit
don't know
about
if it
that.
was 10, it was 8 or 10 or 12 or something, but
Okay.
Miracle Mornings is one of my favorite books. It was a #1 bestseller, and it talks all about having daily rituals and, having specifically having your miracle mornings and being able to have personal development rituals and things that can help you create the day and the week and the month and the life that you want. So it was a #1 bestseller for quite some time, and then they franchised it and did one specifically for the network marketing industry, and then interviewed me and several other awesome leaders and asked about our daily rituals and what we do. And it's interesting how similar so many of us have developed those very similar rituals and daily habits.
Wow, that's amazing. I think when I read it, I didn't really realize that that's what the Miracle Morning part was. I've never heard of that book, Miracle Morning. I'm going to have to go look it up now.
Yeah.
Those of you who have followed me, I have my daily GPS every morning. So, I mean, really successful people, that is, I think, the start of everybody's day. And, that's really successful. And it's interesting to me. I have so many people that I introduce the daily GPS to. They're like, oh, I don't have that much time in the morning. I can't take even like 15 minutes and do like a miracle morning or a daily GPS or a power hour or something like that. They just feel like
Right.
it's a waste of time. It takes time out of their day. But what would you say to people that think that?
It's so funny because I developed those rituals and habits primarily in late at night. Like I was always a night owl, and so I developed those habits back when I was 21. I had a great mentor. Since then, I've done late night seminars and things like that. And so I always would do from like 1 to 2:30 in the morning. Would do all of those habits. And it wasn't until a few years ago somebody challenged me to like, what, you just can't hack it in the morning and stuff like that. And I knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, and it still worked. And I shifted to getting up an hour before my kids get up. And man, it was unbelievable. I absolutely love it. It made a dramatic improvement in the results from habits that I'd done for 25 years.
I'm kind of what I'm hearing is if you can't get up in the morning, try at least getting in the habit of doing it at night.
It was a blessing to do it at night. It was great, but had I to do it over again, I would have told myself, no, it's better in the morning and shifting. And what happened was for many, many years, that was when my energy would really turn on, was late at night, because I had programmed myself to do that. Then I would drag in the morning, but I'd be super productive after that. And now I just love getting having it in the morning, and my energy is way different. I love it.
I love that too. And I feel the same way. In fact, I actually started getting up at 4 a.m. I have been getting up at 5 a.m. for years.
Mhm.
And just recently just started getting up an hour earlier because I always felt like I was like the clock was just kind of pushing me by
Right.
9 o'clock in the morning. It was like, oh, I gotta hurry and get this stuff done. So I just started getting up a little bit earlier, and it's amazing what you can get done before, while it's still dark, when nobody's calling you, when
Right.
nobody needs you for anything else. It's and again, you can get that at 2 o'clock in the morning too, but but there is something about that morning.
Again, it really did bless my life doing it at what I would say now is probably not the optimal time. And so the habits work regardless, but it's optimal. It really is what you're looking for. And what nighttime worked for me was similar, was that I'm by myself and I don't have urgent things calling. One of the activities that I do on those daily rituals is prioritizing my time, prioritizing my schedule. And so doing that at night is helpful, but it didn't create the intensity that doing it in the morning has done. So it's been more effective for sure. But yes, I know for sure, based on 20 years of doing it, you can do it at night and it's still very effective. It's just not as optimal. So if that'll help someone to ease into those habits and they want to do it at that time, great. And then as you get a little stronger, then maybe you want to shift.
I love it. I love it. That's just confirmation from, what I preach. And I'm grateful to hear that. Okay. So let's get back to your bio. I haven't actually even finished that, but I just found that.
Sidetrack squirrel. Yeah.
So back to, you were talking about at 21 years old, you had this mentor, but even before that, you were transitioning from addiction and depression to being financially independent. And even just like within 6 months, becoming a professional speaker through the guidance of mentors and completely immersing yourself into a leadership and personal development curriculum. And I think that's totally amazing. And like I said, I know that there's going to be somebody that's listening to this. It's like, wow, okay, I need to really tune up the volume and listen to Rob because I've been there. And today you and your wife, Kenyan, have a thriving multi-million-dollar business and are living the life that you've always wanted. You're life coaches and policy council members and even co-owners of the Life platform and Starfish, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. That's how I met you. Popular keynote speakers and mentors of thousands of entrepreneurs around the globe. And so, yeah, thank you for being here. And let's talk a little bit more about that Life platform and Starfish, because that was where I was introduced to you and kind of got excited about having you on the show.
Yeah, so we launched a company November 1st, 2011. The two main founders of that company, Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady, we launched Life Leadership back then and ended up doing over $1 billion in sales in personal development, financial literacy, leadership education. We were doing over 5,000 live seminars per year in 20 countries, and it's been absolutely awesome. And then in 2018, a big part of our ethos in the financial education is our financial fitness program. We talk about the offense, defense, and playing field of money. So offense is how to make more money, how to be an entrepreneur, how to increase your income, how to maximize your talents. And then defense is getting out of debt, budgeting, how to pay less in taxes, all of that. And then the playing field is really teaching people that there is a financial system. We call it the financial matrix, like the movie The Matrix, that is this system of control that really is debilitating and will enslave you if you let it, with inflation, taxes, and debt. That ethos, it was very popular. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people with that. And a friend of mine created a new technology. He was somebody who I had mentored back when he was 18 and I was 21. I don't know what kind of a mentor I was at 21. I was probably more like a tormentor than a mentor, but maybe I was 22. And he ended up becoming a multimillionaire in the credit card processing world, sold his company, came to me in 2018 and said, hey, I know what you're all about with the financial matrix stuff, and I've got something you're going to want to invest in. So we went to lunch, and he had developed a technology that was the first payment technology that could go around the credit card system. That was really amazing to me, because when you look at, every time we swipe a card, which now 95% of payments are done on credit cards or debit cards, and only 5% cash. Since COVID, it shifted from about 80-20 to now 95-5. Man, credit cards you can use responsibly. I've had a lot of great benefits from having credit cards, so I never thought much about it. I thought, well, all those people that cut up their credit cards, they're just kind of not sophisticated like I am, and I've used mine for good. something I'm passionate about is freedom. And I've spoken around the world about individual liberty and, here in the US, a lot about the Constitution, things that I'm passionate about. What I really came to realize and understand is that the credit card system is a full monopoly, that even technologies like Venmo and Cash App weren't allowed to do retail transactions because it's a full monopoly. And anyway, he kind of helped me understand that, and that he had the solution. He had a better way. So now we bought that back in 2018. March of 2020, we didn't really know what to do with it. We just loved the concept, and we were doing huge business in our leadership education company. And so we just kind of held on to it. And March of 2020, we got off a leadership cruise, and we had probably 600 or 700 live seminars scheduled that month in 20 countries with, tens of thousands of people attending. And we get off the cruise and the whole world shuts down with this COVID thing. All of a sudden, no live events. And so we really felt like it was divine guidance to go all in. 4 years later, millions of dollars invested, and we came out in February of this year with the Starfish platform. And Starfish is a payment app on your phone that is a better way to pay and be paid. We're able to pay the profits back to the people. So it's a great way to save money. You get anywhere from 1% to 20% cash back by paying with Starfish instead of a debit or a credit card. So whether it's Walmart or Amazon or Target or Panda Express or where the majority of the biggest stores that you're already shopping at, you get 1% to 20% cash back. It's a debit system, so it keeps people out of debt. We have our whole education that we built over a decade and over $100,000 in courses that are in the Starfish platform. So it's a learn and earn platform. So we can bring that message to millions. And what's really cool is it's advertised strictly through direct sales. You can't go online and get it. It has to be through referral. And when you share Starfish with someone else, every time they use it to buy gas or groceries or anything else, they get paid cash back rewards, and you get paid an ongoing residual commission on everything they ever buy. So that's kind of the big picture concept. We launched it in February, and it's been going absolutely amazing. Tens of thousands of subscribers, and it's kind of hockey stick growing right now in US and Canada. And so, in fact, one of the things that I love doing is that Starfish is a supporter of the Get Inspired and Live in Your Power show. So we'll give the listeners an opportunity, if they want to download Starfish, that they can use that. They can get access to this ongoing amazing education. They can get cash back, stay out of debt, and support an awesome show like this at the same time.
That's awesome. Thank you. And the more that I've learned, and I know Rob and I got on the phone for, I don't know, an hour and a half or something like that. I had all these questions because I don't invest and I don't assign my name to things, very easily. I
Right.
want to make sure that it's something that is completely in integrity with what I teach and, with my value system and everything. And after having that time with you, I really felt confident to be able to start sharing that, with other people. I've done the budgeting system, the envelope budgeting system, where you take all your income, and you split it up into the cash envelopes and you only spend that much cash. But most people don't use cash anymore. I mean, it's just
Right.
not typical to have that much cash on hand. And so I love the concept of Starfish because it's kind of like going back to that envelope system a little bit to help you be more cognizant of the money that you're spending. Because I know we were talking about how easy it is just to swipe the credit card. Half the time I'm talking to the checkout person, I don't even know what the amount of money is that I just
Right.
spent. I have no idea what it is. I just swipe the card. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that. But there's something about, just like we were talking about, there's something about getting up in the morning and doing your power hour, your miracle
Right.
morning, your daily GPS. There's something about using cash. There's something about actually having to think about it. And
Right.
the Starfish allows you to, the convenience of the credit card, but you're still taking a little bit more conscious thought in your purchases. And then at the same time, you're getting the cash back. I've seen it in actual practice, and you get that money immediately. It's
Yeah.
sort of like the rewards on the credit cards, but you immediately get that cash back.
It's
Really
pretty
cool.
awesome. It's our average cash back is about 5 or 6%, which is much higher than most credit cards, but they can't go into debt here. And, you and I talked about this, that of course there's responsible ways to use debt, but most people are financing their burrito. They're not financing assets, right? And so
Yeah.
this is a way to shift all of your consumer items into a cash-based system where you're getting better rewards, staying out of debt, developing great habits. And then, man, if somebody's looking for either side hustle income or a real revolution in their income, it's amazing that you're not having to sell a product or a service. You're just teaching people a better way to pay. The community aspect, I was helping a grandma who's working, making $1,100 or $1,200 a month in Social Security. She has 10 adult kids. And just by getting her 10 adult kids to get Starfish, they're all saving money. They get cash back on what they're buying anyway. And that creates an ongoing commission for grandma anywhere from $100 to $400 a month, which for her is like a huge increase in her freedom. So, you don't have to be a superstar salesperson to just see this is a better way to pay and be paid. And so we're having a blast. It's absolutely, my second son just moved out about a month ago, and he's 18, and he was got a hard-working job. It's definitely not a job that inspires him. He's not living in his power, but I love the idea of hard work and kind of learning that you don't want to do that forever. And he was over on a Sunday. He said, "Oh, I better get home. I got to wake up early, and oh man, my job." And I said, "But you're 18. Have you ever heard your dad say, 'Oh no, I have to go to work tomorrow'?" And he's like, "No, never. You love what you do." I'm like, "Well, there's a hint. There's a hint that will allow you to be happy if you focus on learning how to bring value in a way that you love Monday mornings and that you are inspired and excited every day."
I love that. And I know later on, we're going to actually be sharing a free offer to help people to really get into that place where they're living their power, where they're living their purpose. So I'm excited to be able to share that a little bit later. So keep listening.
Sure.
I want to go back before you had all this success. You've had these opportunities, these situations where people have reached out and said, "Hey, this is something you want to invest in." But there was a time when you were not there. You were not that guy. And so talk to us a little bit. I know that you had something happen when you were quite young that really changed the course of your path. And so I'm just going to kind of turn it over to you and let you tell that story.
Well, I would, and yeah, you always hope when you share your story that it's not about me, it's about whoever's watching this, that you may not have the same story, but you have baggage like I had, you had experiences that gave you limiting beliefs like I had. And the goal is hopefully for you to see yourself in my story and Wileen's story and be able to see what's possible for you. So I was what today would be diagnosed as pretty extreme attention deficit hyperactive disorder as a kid, to the point that my third grade teacher was super kind to me, but in order for her to survive, every day I went to the principal's office for an hour so that she could pay attention to someone other than me. And so I was pretty extreme in my impulse control issues and things like that. At 15, I was at Highland High School, Gilbert, Arizona, and my friend Brad and Jason and Jordan and I went out for lunch. And Brad was driving and thought he would go fast. And so he was going about 100 miles an hour in a Suburban. For some reason, thought he would go to the shoulder of the road on the dirt and kind of do a Brody. We ended up hitting a ditch, going end over end for about 200 yards. And Brad was killed in that accident. And all of us were hurt pretty bad. And I was a junior. I was 15, almost 16. And we all have trauma. We all have drama. We all have stories, right? We get tests. And when those tests happen, we get to choose. And what I could have seen is that, man, no one should have lived through this accident. And I did. And so, man, God must have saved me for something great. And I could have seen that whole incident and experience as a blessing, that something that happened for me. Or another way to look at that is I'm a victim. Why did this happen to me? Why did my friend have to die? And now I can't do sports and all these surgeries. And I chose the latter. I chose to claim that victim story. Through that process, struggled a lot with painkillers. Those create some nasty side effects. And then After high school, that kind of dramatized my impulse control issues. I go all in on whatever I do. So after high school, I got into MMA fighting. That was when the Ultimate Fighting Championship was just starting to get big. And so I had wrestled in high school, and finally I was, recovered from my surgeries after high school. So went to do some MMA training, and then a promoter had me come fight, and I actually had I did all amateur, did well there. And then I only lost one professional fight in my whole career. Now I only fought one professional fight, but I only lost one. There's two ways to look at that. And so, I got my arm broken on that fight. But anyway, I was just living a pretty crazy lifestyle. At 21, I had a couple of friends pass away and a couple of friends go to prison. And I thought, I should probably change my life. This is probably not the life that I always wanted. So I moved back home, and my parents had a good friend of theirs who was a multimillionaire. And he was somebody who I always looked up to because he had a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce and a Maserati. And he had a lot of jewelry and stuff that it was like, man, he was my idol. They said, I was home, I was trying, but I had built up a script, a story that I wasn't someone that finished. I quit everything. I really lacked confidence that I could stick with just being on the straight and narrow. My parents were concerned, and so they talked to their friend and said, hey, Robbie really looks up to you. Would you talk to him? And instead of just talking to me, he comes over in his Ferrari, he picks me up, takes me to dinner. The first part of the conversation was just talking about, what do you want, Rob? And building my dream. And I'm like, I want all your stuff. I want, I want it just like you've got it. He's like, oh, I can help you do that. No problem. I'm like, okay. And he said, I can help you do it. The challenge is, Rob, very few people will ever change their life. He says, and you're really screwed up. Well, thanks. And he says, you can do it. Just very few people will, because he says, you've lived a life that you don't just have negative thoughts. You've rewritten neural pathways in your brain. You've changed your biology to the point that you really are a quitter. You really are like that's part of your identity now, not just the way you think, but biologically you've created a new person that lives congruent with that thinking. That's not easy to change. He talked a lot about, he says, willpower won't do it. Like you see people that are overweight and they'll lose the weight. What always happens? Well, they gain it all back, plus an extra 5 or so for insurance, right? Or somebody who's struggling with grades and their parents use the carrot and the stick to get them to get good grades, and then they go back, because the strongest innate desire we all have is to live congruent with the belief of who we are. What is our identity? And he said, so Rob, unless you change that, you can do all the willpower you want, but the next time you're in a stressful situation, you have created a response to stimulus neural pathway that you will continue to go back to that life. So it really motivated me. I said, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'll do anything. And so here's what I had to agree to. I couldn't afford his time, right? So it was free. And he says, but here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you what you have to do. He said, Rob, don't feel bad. If you don't want to do it, don't feel bad. Just don't call me anymore, though. He said, so like, I'll tell you what to do. As long as you do it every single day, then I'll still coach you. And if you miss, it's no problem. I'm not mad. Just don't call me again. And so it was very cut and dry. And he said, so 6 months, full immersion. Like, okay, what's full immersion mean? He says, no TV, no movies, no music, no video games, and no friends. I'm like, okay, I don't have any friends anymore. So, okay, whatever. It was pretty easy. I did. And then he gave me the book, Think and Grow Rich. He told me to read the book, Think and Grow Rich. I read that over and over again. And he was super big into programming. Today, they talk about neuroplasticity, being able to rewrite neural pathways. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, written back in the early 1900s, 1925, 1930. I mean, still today, if you go through the neuroplasticity science, it is dead on from what Napoleon Hill wrote about 100 years ago. So he had me read that over and over again. And then I listened to audios He called it audio immersion therapy. I was listening to 6 to 10 hours a day. I had one of those old Sony Walkmans. It was waterproof, it was yellow, it was awesome. I was working at a car dealership and I was listening. I was going through batteries every other day. He said, Rob, a lot of times people will say you should take time to think and meditate. He says, don't do that. Don't do it. Your thinking is super screwed up. You'll mess everything up. So don't think for yourself because you're wrong. So if you want different results, stop taking your own advice. You're wrong. You don't have the fruit, so don't listen to yourself anymore. As you're listening to podcasts like this, as you start to plug in to this type of success content, a lot of times you hear it and you go, that doesn't sound right. Obviously, we all should have a filter of because there is a lot of different ideas out there. And, just because somebody has had some success doesn't mean that their way is the right way for you. However, I would caution you to not take your own advice if you don't have fruit on the tree in that area. You're obviously doing things wrong. Otherwise, you'd have different results. So anyway, I did that and it changed my life, Wileen. Like I went from a super negative kid that had very low self-image to I got involved in the network marketing industry back then. And this was not in some super cool, sexy payment app, opportunity. I was selling laundry soap, which, 21-year-old guys love laundry soap. That's what we talk about. It was an old company, 3 million distributors in it. And within 6 months, I was able to pass 3 million distributors in that company, built a big team of rock star laundry soap salespeople. And I was able to become financially free at 21. Totally changed my life.
That's amazing. What an awesome story. And hopefully everybody doesn't have to go through the pain of some of the things that you've shared. But I think we all come to a moment where we're almost like hitting a wall. Like you said, I got to look outside of myself because whatever's going on in here is not working. That you talked about the carrots. A lot of times you can motivate yourself. And I know network marketing and, I did that for 18 years. So I know, how that is. There's a lot of carrots that get put out there. You can motivate yourself to work, for the carrot. But sometimes I even think the fear and the dread of turning out, like your friends, either dead or in prison, that sometimes is the biggest motivator. It motivates you enough to be able to start looking outside of yourself for something to make that change.
One of my passions is I work with a lot of different groups. So I do some ministering at a prison in Tucson. I've worked with different addiction groups, and I love to speak and talk to people that are struggling because we all have addiction. We all have coping mechanisms that are unhealthy and that we're addicted to those coping mechanisms. And whether it's watching too much TV or scrolling through, social media, just wasting time, or it's whenever you're put into a situation that would stretch you in a way that you don't want to be stretched, it's, I'm not that type of person. I can't do that. And all of these things are mechanisms that we utilize to not grow, to not stretch, to not be who we're really called to be. And the only time when you're dealing with addiction, the only time someone will change is when they hit bottom. Those of us that have had family members that struggle with addiction, we don't want them to hit bottom because bottom might be dead, and so we often give them the ability to continue with their addiction for a long time because we don't want them to hit bottom. I have no judgment around that, but what I do know is that for all of us, we have to hit bottom. The only time you're going to change your life is when you have gone below your standards and you can't stand being there anymore. And, I was a personal trainer. I was a fighter and I love fitness. And yet because I fought heavyweight, I was used to eating 6,000 calories a day and, in the gym 3 or 4 hours a day. Since that time, my first 15 years of marriage, I would go from 190 up to about 260 to 280 and then back down. And I did that 6 or 7 times in 15 years, like huge 60, 70 pounds at a time. And my wife's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, it's kind of fun on the way up because I eat whatever I want. And then it's fun on the way down. I feel good about it. But I had standards. There was a certain point where for me, it was a rule of 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And what I mean by that is just like I'd get out of the shower, I'd be brushing my teeth. And if I when I stopped brushing my teeth, if I kept jiggling for longer than 3 seconds, then that's my stand. I can't do that. I have to have some pride. And so 3 seconds of jiggling is all I can allow. And then I would, okay, I'm going all in, boom. You'd see it in 2 or 3 months, I would drop 70 pounds and back and forth. And that's not healthy. And that started to create a script until one day I just realized I can just raise my standards, that I don't have to have a 3 second rule, that I can just change and that's for all of us, is that you're not going to change if people tell me, oh, I'm doing pretty good. Like if I'm doing all right, well, for sure, you're not going to change. Like you're not going to grow. If you think you're doing okay financially, you're definitely not going to make more. If you're doing okay in your relationship, it's not going to get better, right? So the only time that things like that improve dramatically is when we decide it's not okay. I'm way below my standards. I will not settle for this, and I have to make that change. That's the only time it happens. So you said hit that wall. We all have to, it's self-imposed. We can self-impose the wall of like this far and no farther.
I'm in a process right now of, I need to change. I need to move my wall. I just really appreciate that advice. I mean, that is gold right there, that you have the power to move your wall. I mean, thank goodness that you had some parents that were really cared about you and wanted to see you succeed. And this mentor who was willing to do that, but he had a wall, right? There was only if you don't do this every day, don't call me anymore. It's do it or don't do it. There's no like somewhere in between. I love that. Thank you.
What's so fun is life is so much more enjoyable when you're all in. So many people, they fear the emotional commitment of being all in. Because if I'm not all in and it doesn't work out, then it doesn't hurt my feelings. I mean, if I like my wife, but I mean, if I could be, I'm okay. Because then if she breaks up with me, I'm okay. I'd like to be rich, but I mean, if I don't get rich, I mean, that's fine. You're never going to accomplish anything great unless you're all in. And all in, like, no, there is no plan B. I am going to get to the top of the mountain or I'm going to die on the side, but I'm not coming back. And when somebody lays down that type of commitment, then providence moves too, right? And all of a sudden, the universe starts to provide. And I believe that that's when those tests happen and the lesson continues until the lesson's learned. And then I think God says, all right, you're ready to move on to the next level. And you can keep leveling up as long as you have that all in. So just go all in, whatever it is. Like, it's so much more fun to be all in.
I love it. You have a special offer that you are offering to our listeners. It feels like it's a kind of a good transition to think about being all in, to really create a purpose statement of what is important for you in your life. And I know this giveaway, it's called Faith It Till You Make It. In fact, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things that changed my life a ton was my language was really messed up. And this mentor was really heavy on your language, your voice, your speaking. Like when you really dial in how neuroplasticity works. Neuroplasticity is, neuro is your brain, plasticity is that it can form, it can change. That we used to think IQ was stable, that's what you got. And they've realized now that's totally not true. You can dramatically increase or decrease your IQ, your emotional quotient, your adversity quotient. All of those things are very malleable. You can go way higher or way lower in all of those areas. Tons of great studies on this. What they've realized when you dial in all the books, and I've read thousands and thousands of pages of awesome books, some of them really good, like personal development type books, and others like psychiatric tomes on research studies that are super boring. All of it, when it really comes down to the simple way that we can all rewrite our script or how it was written in the first place is just emotion and repetition. When you think of people who struggle with, if any, childhood abuse, my wife used to work for the Child Crisis Center in Arizona, and it's not genetic that 80% of those struggle with anxiety, depression, ADHD, like those things. Yes, some of it may have been genetic, but it was created through high emotion, high stress, high, situations and repetition. if you're abused and constantly told you're a loser as a kid, you can't control that as a kid. And so that's a script that's written. But so many people waste their life because they go, I'm going to find myself. I'm going to figure out who I am. And I think you'll be sadly disappointed. Like people have different faiths, but if you believe in the Bible, as I do, it talks about that the natural man is an enemy to God. And what you'll find out when you go find yourself is that you're not that great. Like that what you find is likely the natural man. It's this body that we've been given. I think of it like a robot, that one of my great callings is to figure out how to take control and reboot my robot to be able to program it the way that it's supposed to work. And so analyzing all the brokenness is just stupid. It's just such a waste of time. Like you sit on the couch and talk about your mom for hours, and it's not going to fix anything. Yes, you have to analyze it enough to know why does this continue to come up? And then let's rewrite. So it's creating a strategy to rewrite, and that's high emotion repetition. So you can do that in a lot of ways through dream building. You can do that in a lot of ways through dramatizing the dread, of what's the consequences if I don't do this? If I continue down this path, what does that do for my kids? What does that do for my spouse? What does that do for my kids' kids? Like, what would that feel like at my funeral? Like you've got to, it takes a lot of intentionality to create the drama, right? To dramatize the dream or the dread in your life, and then repetition. And your voice, I learned, is the most powerful script writer. And so I used to say things all the time like, man, I can't do this. I'm not that way. I'm like this. I am, anybody who believes in the Bible, another name for Jesus Christ is I am. And so one of the things that I started to believe, and I totally believe today, is that anytime I use I am, and then I say something that's not edifying, that's not building, that's not encouraging, to me, that's sacrilegious. I'm taking another name for God and then putting something negative. So I don't allow myself to say something negative. But at that point, I only talked negative. I was so destructive. And so one of the things my mentor did, I had a rubber band on my wrist, and it was a pattern interrupt. So anytime I said anything limiting, I would have to snap it and say, that's not true. And then I would have to say it out loud in a positive, optimistic way. So, man, I'm not good at remembering names. Oh, dang, snap. That's not true, Wileen. In fact, I know that someone's name is incredibly important for them to hear and shows how much I love and respect them. And so it's something I'm really focused on. Right. And so I didn't lie and say, I'm awesome, I'm the best at remembering names, but I rephrase it in a way that is forward thinking, optimistic. There's a million things that I do wrong, but I have 5 kids that have never heard their dad say, I can't, or something negative. In our house, if you say I can't, you got to do push-ups. It's a big deal what we speak. So one of the habits that I got into that really changed my life was speaking. At first it was mantras and different like little phrases, and that was super helpful. And then over time, working through people like Dale Carnegie, Brian Tracy, Stephen Covey, a lot of different great, everything that I have, I stole. But through stealing from enough people, I created my own that is a formula for creating your own purpose statement. And a purpose statement isn't your goal. I have vision statements are about my goals and what I'm running for, but a purpose statement is who you are. And when you speak a purpose statement, I say this every day with passion, with power, with visualization. When I do that, then I set myself up to make sure I'm living congruent with that purpose statement. So what I say, and it's formed over the years. Every morning, I love to just be. This is how I get into state. Is I'll read scriptures, I'll pray, and then I say, I am a disciple of Jesus Christ, and I'm conscious today of the lessons he's offering me. I'm the rock of faith for my family and all of those who follow me. My life is full of joy, love, and passion, and I'm excellent at maintaining enthusiasm in all that I do. My marriage to Kenyan is a dream come true, and together we're guiding Jackson, Rustin, Sailor, Tyson, Dawson back to their Heavenly Father. Today, I'm balancing my time between personal refinement, inspiring others, and creating memories with my family and friends. I expose the greatness in others and shine my light on it for all to see. I'm a wise steward of the incredible wealth that I've been given. Today, I show gratitude for my body by eating the most nutritious foods and demanding greater strength, speed, and stamina. I hunger for truth, and I have the discipline to study from the greatest minds. I have been called to lead millions to spiritual, political, and financial freedom. I'm living for full success, and I'm willing to pay full price. So I say that every morning, and it has dramatically changed my life. And so, yeah, anyone who would like, I'll send you a copy of Faith It Till You Make It. It's an audio PDF format that has that and the questions that I asked to be able to create that for me. So you can create that for you. And I'd love to share it with you.
That's amazing. And what I'm feeling, as you were sharing that, is that this purpose statement is your standard.
Yes.
That's where you don't allow yourself to go below.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever go below that, it's like that 3-second rule.
I know, I'm off. Yeah.
So
Totally.
that's amazing. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And I appreciate you offering that to our listeners. And we're going to have in the show notes, we'll have how to get that. Did they just go to your website?
Either through email or Facebook message, and I'm happy to send it to them.
Okay, we'll make sure it's in the show notes. And I do want to share Rob's email. And while I'm doing that, Rob, I'm just going to give you one last question. Just one tidbit of if someone is wanting to change their brain, if they're wanting to change their standard and kind of move that wall forward, what would be one suggestion, one tidbit that you could give them? So I'll let you think about that for just a moment. And I'm going to share contact information if you want to reach out to Rob. Biz Robson. It's EBIZROBSON @gmail.com. And that'll be in the show notes as well. So that's how you can contact Rob if you want to reach out to him. Yeah, we'll put everything else in the show notes. So just check that. All right, Rob, one last little tidbit. If someone is wanting to change their standard and kind of move that forward a little bit, what would be your advice?
The thing that I feel is the most important thing, there's a lot of great things we can do, but if you could just do one, it would be that you have to focus on finding the right community and mentors in your life, because we all have weaknesses, and left to myself, I know that I won't hold myself to the same level of accountability, but I've surrounded myself with mentors and people that I mentor and coach that I feel responsible for, and I will live my best and highest self in order to be who I'm supposed to be for them. And so it's really that all these daily habits, all of those things changed my life, but it was because of the positive peer pressure in my life. That's what created the standard. And so in my spiritual life, I go to church and I'm in, leadership positions there to where I feel I'm accountable to live a certain way. In my business life, going at it on your own is going to be really hard. And you need to find mentors, coaches, a community of people. Napoleon Hill calls it a mastermind, finding a community of people that have super high standards that are better than you in many different ways, but you can bring something to them as well, and that you lift each other up. So that's, I think, finding the right community and creating the environment that's going to help you move ahead. You get that right, everything else will come.
I agree. Thank you. Wonderful advice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you being here today. And thank you to all of our listeners for being here, and look forward to having another guest next time. And until then, go out and get inspired and live in your power.
Thank you.